Purple Heart. It was a quiet, rainy Tuesday. The silence in the kitchen softened as the two of them sat side by side, the steam from the ramen bowls rising into the dim light and creating a small, cozy world that felt miles away from the intense glare of the global spotlight. Taehyung took a slow bite, the warmth of the food finally grounding him after hours of pacing his room. While Jungkook casually scrolled through his phone, intentionally keeping the conversation light so his older brother wouldn't feel cornered. It was in these quiet, unscripted moments that the foundation of their bond truly showed itself, proving that no matter how chaotic their lives became or how badly a planned surprise fell apart, the unspoken understanding between them was always resilient enough to bridge the gap. Taehyung looked over at Jungkook, watching the subtle, amused smile playing on the younger boy's lips, and felt the last lingering remnants of his intense mortification begin to melt away, replaced by a quiet gratitude for a friend who knew exactly when to laugh and when to simply offer a quiet space to heal. As they talked late into the night, the conversation naturally drifted away from the kitchen disaster and into deeper, more reflective territory, touching on the immense pressure they both felt as individual artists navigating an ever-evolving career. Taehyung admitted that his desire to create a flawless, memorable evening stems from a constant, internal drive to be a source of strength and comfort for the people he cares about most, making the sudden failure of his plan feel magnified tenfold in his own mind. Jungkook listened intently, nodding in total agreement, and shared that he never looked at the situation as a failure at all, but rather as a testament to Taehyung's genuine golden heart and his willingness to go all out just to make someone else smile. This reassurance was exactly what Taehyung needed to hear, completely shifting his perspective on the night's events and turning what he thought was a deeply embarrassing scar into a hilarious, treasured memory that they would undoubtedly laugh about for years to come. By the time the sky outside began to turn a soft, early morning gray, the kitchen was clean, the food was gone, and the heavy weight that had hung over the dorm for hours had completely vanished into the crisp morning air. Walking back to his room, Taehyung felt a profound sense of relief washing over him, realizing that true friendship isn't about maintaining a flawless, unbothered image at all times, but about being vulnerable enough to let someone see your messy, chaotic, and beautifully imperfect self. The next day, when the rest of the members woke up and jokingly asked about the faint scent of smoke still lingering in the hallways, Taehyung and Jungkook simply exchanged a secret, knowing glance and laughed, keeping the full story of that rainy Tuesday night as a private chapter in their long, unbreakable journey together. Night and Seoul. When the atmosphere inside the dorm shifted from its usual chaotic energy to something thick with unspoken tension, a night that fans would later speculate a boo tea for months, but one that Kim Taehyung kept locked away in his heart until now. For a group that prides itself on transparency, sharing almost every waking moment with millions of people around the globe, there are still pockets of their lives that remain fiercely guarded, moments where the cameras turn off, the stage lights fade, and they are left to navigate the complex reality of growing up under a microscope. Taehyung sat on the edge of his bed, the soft glow of his phone illuminating a face that usually carried an unbothered, ethereal calm, but that night, his expression was a tight knot of pure, unadulterated embarrassment. The source of his distress wasn't a missed choreography step or a cracked note on stage, but rather a profoundly awkward misunderstanding involving his closest friend and bandmate, Jungkook. A misunderstanding so deeply humbling that Taehyung's immediate, frantic instinct was to completely vanish from Jungkook's sight for the rest of the evening. To understand why Taehyung spent the better part of 4 hours hiding behind closed doors and dodging text messages, one has to understand the unique dynamics that exist between the two youngest members of the group. A bond built on years of shared mischief, late-night video game marathons, and a mutual understanding that usually requires no words at all. Yet, it was precisely this level of comfort that set TH's stage for the ultimate comedic tragedy of errors, beginning earlier that afternoon when Taehyung decided to prepare a special, overly ambitious surprise for Jungkook to celebrate the completion of a grueling production cycle. Taehyung, known for his eccentric but deeply sentimental gestures, had spent hours orchestrating what he envisioned as a grand, cinematic moment of appreciation, complete with a carefully curated playlist, specific ambient lighting, and a homemade dish he had never actually attempted to cook before. He wanted to create a peaceful sanctuary for his friend, a space where They could unwind completely away from the demands of their hectic schedules, but his vision of a perfect, heartwarming evening began to unravel the very second he took his eyes off the kitchen stove. The chaos initiated with a simple distraction, a sudden, urgent phone call from a producer regarding a solo track modification, which caused Taehyung to completely forget about the elaborate, highly experimental marinated dish he had left simmering on high heat. Within 15 minutes, the savory aroma he had envisioned turned into a thick, acrid cloud of smoke that quickly triggered the dorm's highly sensitive, incredibly loud internal safety alarms. In a panic, Taehyung began frantically waving a dish towel at the ceiling sensor, coughing through the haze, only to look up and see Jungkook standing in the doorway. His eyes wide with a mixture of shock and sheer amusement as he took in the sight of Taehyung covered in flour, soot, and a look of absolute defeat. The contrast between the suave, sophisticated Kim Taehyung the world knew and the chaotic, smoke-shrouded figure standing in a ruined kitchen was so stark that Jungkook couldn't help but burst into his signature, resounding laughter. A sound that ordinarily would have made Taehyung smile but at that exact moment, sent a wave of intense embarrassment rushing through him. Feeling entirely exposed and deeply mortified by the spectacular failure of his grand gesture, Taehyung's brain went into survival mode, leading him to grab his phone, mutter a hasty, nonsensical excuse about needing to check an email, and retreat swiftly to his bedroom, locking the door behind him. For the next several hours, Jungkook attempted to coax him out, knocking gently on the wood and sending a flurry of teasing messages asking if the master chef was planning to feed him burnt offerings or if they were going to have to order takeout instead. Taehyung, sitting in the dark with his face buried in a pillow, couldn't bring himself to face the younger boy. Convinced that his pride had taken a blow from which it would take days to recover, his mind replaying the image of Jungkook